Wherever you are, welcome to another of my takes from a rest day on our bike ride. And I wanted to talk about a couple of comments that I've had as we've been riding through China. We've been followed by Zhongshan media, and a few people are assuming that means we have support and support vehicles, but we don't. Because of my time spent in Zhongshan, a long time now, and the fact that my wife and I have been actively involved in charity for many years, we've got connections in local media, and so when they found out that I was going to ride across China again, they wanted to be involved. So they arranged for our local decathlon store to sponsor and support us. So we've got some equipment from them, and the sunglasses that I wear, the shirts that we're both wearing, the walkie-talkies, as well as things like rehydration packs and an overhaul of my bike before setting out. All of these things came from Decathlon. They also got some sponsorship from the town of Minzhong. It's a beautiful part of Zhongshan, and because of that, Minzhong were able to promote their own place using us on bikes, and we spent day one of this trip in Minzhong, riding around some beautiful parts of my own city that I hadn't even realized were there. But that was at the cost of day one of our ride, and we finally finished filming about 5 p.m. 20 kilometers south of our starting point, so before we were free to leave. So we went home, we spent the night in our own beds, and after coffee in the morning started the trek north towards Inner Mongolia, which is where we're 2/3 of the way. The next time we saw media was in Changsha in Henan province about 10 days later, where we spent 2 days filming around the wonderful sights and cities and exploring the culture and food delights of that city. And then we moved from there to Wuhan. Bev and I rode there over 5 days. The media crew went back to Zhongshan and joined us on the day we arrived in Wuhan, where we spent another 2 days filming with the film crew. So they weren't with us from Zhongshan to Changsha, they weren't with us from Changsha to Wuhan, and there were only two of us, Bev and I, together on the road, but they joined us again in Zhengzhou in Henan, where I am today. Bev has headed back to Guangdong for some business that he needed to attend to, and I've been handling all the media for 3 days now with Zhongshan Ribao, Zhongshan Daily in English, and I've had 1 day with Zhengzhou media, who heard that we were coming through from Zhongshan media, and they asked if they could support our hotel for 2 nights in return for a day of my time with my bike and an interview. So we've had 3 days with media here in Zhengzhou, as well as 1 rest day, which was a couple of days ago. Bev will be back later today, and so tomorrow, a day later than we expected, we're heading off to Shanxi, one of the 2 provinces in China that so far I've never visited. After that, only Qinghai and of course Taiwan need to be ticked off for me to have visited every place. Now the important thing is not that I've been to every province, municipality, autonomous region and SAR, special administrative region, but I've spent some time in each one. It doesn't qualify me as an expert on China by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly means I've seen more than most foreigners who visit or even those who live in China. In fact, as most Chinese people tell me, I've seen more of their country than they have, and much of it on 2 wheels. Back to our bikes. Francis Tango, a viewer in the Netherlands, made this point. If you cycle on the highway in his country, you will be arrested immediately. However, what Francis didn't know is that when I was cycling, that was not a highway. This is just a main road between Beijing and Hong Kong, which comes a long way west. This is the G107. And the 3-digit G roads are all okay to ride on. The 2-digit roads are not. But we wouldn't get arrested. We'd simply be told, go back. And it's happened to me several times. I've never been arrested. But we're not allowed through the toll gates. Now, in the old days, in 2014, when I first rode across China, we were allowed on the highways only in far west China, because they knew the roads were in such poor state of repair. But that's no longer the case. I guess we wouldn't be allowed there nowadays, but we're not going west on this trip, so I can't find out for sure. By 2019, when my wife and I and Bev rode from Urumqi to Guangdong, we had great roads most of the way. The G318 or 312 in Xinjiang and Gansu was like a highway, and quite legal for us to ride on it. The G30 was a highway, and we never tried, although I have done hundreds of kilometers on that road in 2014 when the 312 was in a very poor state. We actually hopped on. Police cars passed us, police checkpoints saw us. Not one of them bothered to stop it. In fact, it was probably considered normal. There was one day leaving Yinchuan, which is famous because it has a Roman fort. It was allegedly a place where captured Roman soldiers who had been fighting in the legions somewhere around Turkey were taken to defend parts of China. And there are indeed a lot of foreign-looking people in that region. They would never have been able to get home again, the Roman soldiers, so their lot in life was cast once they were captured and taken east. But that's another story. One of the people we met there showed us from our hotel before we left the city. He guided us to the entry point to the toll road and showed us a little trick that we used a couple of times. We stopped about 300 meters short of the toll booth and we waited. We waited just a short moment. A fully laden, long-haul, heavy goods vehicle came along and he shouted at us, "Go! Go now! Go fast alongside this truck!" Which we did. And as we reached the toll gate, it opened. We were hidden from the toll collectors and the cameras by the full truck, and we were through the gates for the next 60, 70, 80 kilometers on the same road. And getting off it was the same trick in reverse. And there's very little waiting time because there are so many trucks. But that was a long time ago. Now there have been some questions about why we don't use the cycle paths here, and the answer is simple. They're either really, really good or they're really, really bad. And they're full of parked cars, tracks that move very slowly, patched up roads that damage the bikes and don't help our bodies. In one case, the entire cycle path was blocked by a huge pillar holding up a billboard, and the path was also smashed to pieces, presumably by the installers of the same billboard. So while we do have many cycle paths to use, the problem here is that cars are allowed to use them too. And I have the theory that if cars are allowed on my bike path, then I'm allowed on their road. Inside the cities, there might be police at junctions during peak hours, and they will tell us, get on the bike path. And that might seem sensible. But if you've seen some of the videos of the bike paths that I'm showing now, you'd realize it's actually safer on the roads. When I'm back on the road tomorrow, I will be posting more videos, and of course I will answer more of your questions. I also hope to get more footage of rural China and show you how people really live in this country. Now what I'm seeing so far is that rural wealth, although not on a par with the major cities, is increasing considerably. This is apparent from all the new construction that we're seeing. The automation in agriculture doesn't come from being in poverty. It's proving that investments are being made in agricultural China. So it's still going to be a long while before 500 million people who live in rural China are classified as moderately prosperous. That's the goal of the government, and everything I'm seeing so far indicates to me that we're on the way to that being achieved. So that's all from me from this hotel room. Stand by for more trips into the mountains of Shanxi province, which is what's coming in the next couple of days. Some shots of rural China at its finest, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.